I have so many examples which shows that the relation or this proposed mechanism of al-ijtihad al-jama'i lead to some problematic issues. The understanding that physicians will only give the information and go home, and then the religious scholars will do the rest, is problematic. I just will give one example because of the time.
You have 5 minutes, Doctor.
I have 5, okay. The discussion about transplanting testicles. The Jordanian scholar Muhammad al-Ashqar, in one of the meetings of the Islamic Organization for Medical Sciences, he wrote a paper, and he said there is no ethical objection. Only those who object to organ transplantation in general would have a problem, but those who accept organ transplantation should only also accept transplanting testicles. But what about the issue of lineage? The one who donates the testicles and the one who receives the testicles. By whom will the woman be impregnated? Who will be the father of the child? The donor or the recipient? According to Al-Ashqar, it is the recipient. It's not the donor. Why? He gave many evidences. For example, the testicles will now be physically attached to the recipient and follows the orders issued by the brain of the recipient, he said. And then he gave many other examples. And as you see, the 4 cases, more or less, you would say they are still in the informative and not the informative. You don't see quotations from the Quran or Sunnah. It's all about how should we perceive and understand, natasawwar, the question at hand, transplanting testicles. So the conclusion, the resulting children must be attributed to the one who received the testicles and not to the one who donated them. And then he had detailed discussions with 10 biomedical scientists, and this is all recorded in the publication of the IOMS, and our great teacher, Sheikh Muhammad Ali al-Bar, he was involved in this. I think he was witness of these discussions. All the biomedical scientists disagreed with what Al-Ashqar said. Why? They said the origin of the testicles, the sperm-producing organ, go back to the 4th or 6th week of the gestational age of the fetus. When we are 4 or 6 weeks old, we get all the, the factory, the machine, producing machine for the sperms when we are 4 or 6 weeks old. So what happens later on is just a matter of maturation and development, but no new sperms are produced after 6 weeks. So the transplanted testicles will continue producing the donor's sperm and not the recipient's sperm. And then Al-Ashqar said to them, it's a very lengthy discussion, but he said to them in one of the questions, but is it possible to empty the testicles, the donated testicles, from the sperms before transplanting them? They said yes, but nothing again will change because the newly produced sperm after transplantation will be produced by the donor's cells. So still we didn't change anything. So the conclusion was his idea is completely wrong, not because he misread specific Quranic verses or prophetic traditions, etc., but all because he misunderstood the informative part. All the religious scholars went to the direction of the biomedical scientists and the physicians, and even his paper was not accepted for publication unless he put a postscript in which he says he retracted his position that he proposed in the beginning. So we raise the question, what is the informative and what is normative here? So if you give an opinion to a religious scholar, medical opinion, this will continue affecting the whole normative process. And then I come to my concluding remarks. Islamic bioethics is not one single block. It's hybrid. It's hybrid. It's consisting of different pieces. And these different pieces should come together in harmony before you come up with a conclusion. And it is clear that no one person can have control on all these parts together. We need more than one person. So it is not only the responsibility of the one who gives the final word, in this case the religious scholar or whatever, but it is shared responsibility between those who are involved. And if we accept this idea that we have more than one responsible who are responsible for these different pieces, Then we have a number of challenges. First of all, the selection criteria. In Islamic law is full with details about shurut al-mujtahid, conditions for involving religious scholars. But there is no discussion to my mind, and Dr. Al-Bar can tell us if discussion happened in the beginning here in the fiqh academies about shurut al-tabib, the conditions of the physician who should be involved in this process.
Dr. Muhammad, you have 1 minute, please.
Okay. Should this one have a specific level of knowledge in medicine? Should have publications in one of the journals, etc.? Or should this person have affinity with Islam? Because we are not only speaking about medicine, but also about medicine in Islam. So whom should we change? If we take only the level of knowledge, we may have non-Muslims included, for instance, or Muslims who have no knowledge about the religion of Islam. It's a selection criteria would be problematic. And the scope of their role, the informative and the normative. How far should they go or can they go? And finally, also it's not only about the physicians, but also others. For instance, the conference on the beginning and the end of human life, it was very clear that the physicians were not only communicating scientific facts, but also their philosophical understanding of these facts. When does human life begin and when does human life end? It's not only a matter of medicine, but also science, but also a matter of philosophy of science and interpretation of science. How are these other specialists also can be included in this process? Thank you very much. I'm sorry if I got.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad, very much for this interesting topic. And I would like, without any further ado, I would like to introduce the third speaker, Dr. Nasser Hamad Hilal Al-Azri. He's a senior consultant of emergency medicine, executive director of Ibri Hospital in Sultanate of Oman. He will talk about bioethics, Islamic perspectives, and suggested framework for Islamic bioethics. Dr. Nasser, you have 15 minutes to present your presentation. The floor is yours.
Inshallah. I should get time off because they missed my presentation.
Could we have somebody from the IT, please?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته إنما أنا هنا كحامل تمرا إلى هجر فاعذروني لذلك. I'm just in front of the gurus actually in bioethics, so I'm just doubting what I would say in here. Sometime 20 years back, I was a medical student at that time. I was sitting in a gynecology clinic with one of the doctors attached to her. Actually, one lady came for one of the outpatient procedures, and the doctor insisted that I attend to see the procedure, how it is being done. The lady refused. She went out. She was quite angry at that time in there. She went even out of the clinic, and she came after a while, actually, telling me, is this the Islam that you are pretending? It was very hurting to me at that time. I started thinking, are we aligned, actually, in our practice with our culture and with our religious teachings or not? It has been there since then, actually. I'm thankful for our speakers who laid the ground, actually, and they have taught me a lot during the initial presentations about what I have spoken, so I'll skip some of the things in here. The 4 principles. Many of us are aware of the 4 principles, and this is the approach actually that's being taught to us in our medical and paramedical schools and also in our practice. And usually we talk about the 4 principles, at least locally here, and I know in some Arab and Islamic countries, this is the dominant approach that's being taught. And the 4 principles are basically the autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice. And we should be aware, even according to the pioneers in the 4 principles, Bucham and Childress, Respect for autonomy is as a principle with priority over all other moral principles, rather than one principle in a framework of prima facie principles. So it takes the priority over all the other principles. I mean the autonomy in here. All clinical bioethical encounters have 4 constant features: medical indications, patient social preferences, quality of patient life, and contextual features in here. According to Bochum and Childress, whatever our personal philosophy, politics, religion, moral theory, or life stance, we will find no difficulty in committing ourselves to 4 prima facie moral principles. These are their words. So they claim actually universality of the 4 principles as such, and they are being transcultural. Actually, if you go back to the medical literature, you'll find a lot of criticism for this universalism in the 4 principles approach. They are not universal, and they are not transcultural. Many cultural backgrounds, they will interpret the same concept differently. The concept of autonomy differs here in Oman compared to that in some other countries, even within Islamic countries, actually. And the same for the other 3 principles. One problem with the 4 principles approach is that it gives the answer before asking the question. Just like here, the answer is nanotechnology, so what is the question in here? So they give the answer in advance, and they want you to fit your case exactly to that answer. We should not get stuck, actually, with the 4 principles approach. It is just an approach, but we should dig behind it. What is there underlying it? Always there is a worldview that underlies any particular approach or concept or theory in here. So, and without understanding the worldview, we'll be entangled actually with the approach. We'll try just to manipulate around the concepts presented in it. The 4 principles, they show us that it is egocentric worldview. It is centered around the human being, around the individual in particular. The world is defined by the existence of the individual in here. It proposes self-actualization as the goal of life. And success here is measured by individuals' happiness. And the attitude guiding it is me first. And this is the concept of humanism in the West, actually, or secular humanism epistemology. So you have always the individual me at the center. Everything in the cosmos, in the life, in the world, actually revolves around the individual, who is there at the center, about me only as a being. Now, do we need an Islamic framework for bioethics, truly? Should be the first question. Let's contrast the worldview, the humanism worldview that dominates the contemporary bioethics with the Islamic one. In general, the self in Islamic view, Islamic worldview actually is seen as God-centric, while it is egocentric in the contemporary bioethics. The world is defined by God's will in Islamic worldview, while it is defined by self-existence in the contemporary bioethics. Success is measured by the outcome, by the fruits that it produces in Islamic worldview, compared to the self-happiness claimed by the Western epistemology. And the attitude of me first is not there. I'm sorry, this is mixed. It should be God first in Islam, before me. It's not about the individual in here. Okay? And the purpose of life in Islam is to worship God, while in the epistemology of the West, it is about self-actualization in here. The source of ethics, in particular, in Islam is transcendental. It goes beyond, actually, the individual. It's not the individual or even the community who decides on those ethics and what is appropriate and what is not. It is transcendental. It is revealed, actually, from God, basically, in the general concept. While it is anthropocentric, which means it's focused, it's centered around the human being in the epistemology of the bioethics. The motivator is mainly internal in Islamic bioethics compared to the external one. And the coverage is holistic. When we talk about bioethics, it's only, when we think within Islamic concept, it's only about the application of ethics within the biomedical field. There's nothing called bioethics in isolation of the other ethics, actually. It is the same ethics that will guide you, whether in your practice, at your home, or in the street in Islam. Justification in Islamic bioethics is a priori. It doesn't need any prior justification. It exists by itself, in a sense. While in the contemporary bioethics, it is a posteriori. It comes from the self-experience and from the human experience in general. And in Islam, it is an end compared to that it being a mean in the contemporary bioethics. So this is the Islamic worldview. Everything is centered about obedience to Allah, to the God, actually. This is the center of the circles in Islam for any Muslim. And then the outer circle will be the divine revelations, which creates the Islamic worldview principles, and it takes us to one ultimate purpose for Muslims. That's to secure a benefit or prevent a harm. And around that comes the purposes of Islamic legislation or maqasid sharia that the speakers have talked about. As we have noted in contemporary ethics, they start from the discipline and find their way to the ethics, while in Islam we start from the principles and find our way actually to the discipline in here. We should understand that Islam is a total way of life. It cannot compartmentalize things in this life. And moral are eternal truths, not human ideas. So it's not egocentric, it's not anthropocentric in here. The purposes in Islam...
You have 5 minutes.
Inshallah. الضروريات الحاجيات التحسينيات, the essentials, the complementarities, the embellishments. Again, you will find different terms of translation in here. Okay. They have talked about the 5 necessities in Islam: protecting the religion, the being, life, intellect, progeny, capital. Again, this is another translation to add to the earlier, using the word capital. I don't know which one is true. Okay. And we have the legal principles, al-qawaid al-fiqhiyya. There are 5 essential legal principles, the maxims, and from these tens, or probably hundreds actually, of principles have been derived later. The intention, the harm, certainty, hardship, and customs. So for every single case, this is the Islamic framework for bioethics. For every single case, specific case at the center actually, it should be guided by the legal principles, al-qawaid al-fiqhiyya, and then by the specific purposes within that case, the partial purposes related to the discipline, and finally the general principles. These all act as a shield actually to cover for and to make it safe for the bioethical decision making in here. Just comparing abortion, for example, from the 4 principles approach and the Islamic approach. If you look at the literature actually, you will find 2 extremes, and of course it's a full spectrum of ideas about the application of the concepts from the church to the philosophers and bioethicists, actually. While Warren, for example, for the autonomy, gives pregnant women the moral ability and autonomy to protect her health, happiness, freedom, and even her life by terminating an unwanted pregnancy, the church looks at this, even in situations when the mother's life is threatened by the fetus, allow the autonomy of the fetus to trump the autonomy of the mother in here. So you have 2 extremes explaining the same concept, actually, of autonomy in completely different ways. And the same applies for non-maleficence, beneficence, and justice in here. So the function of ethics to guide toward right action cannot be approached, actually, cannot be achieved using the 4 principles as such. If you can have 2 extremes, 2 contradictory extremes explaining the same concept differently. If you look at abortion from the Islamic framework, actually, the case itself is guided by the principles and the by purposes of Islam. So by the end of the day, you will have shielded case in here that will cover within the general principles and purposes. You cannot go out of those purposes when you are deciding about the bioethical issues in Islam. This tree has been there near to my house, actually. It has survived for years, surprisingly. It grew through the bole in there for years. It has survived for years. Unfortunately, it died some 3 years back. We don't have to limit ourselves to a framework that doesn't fit our culture. Probably the 4 principles, it fits to another culture, to another society, but not to ours. We have to get rid of that frame. We have to free ourselves. We have to find our framework for action within our culture and religion in here. So we can see that the Islamic framework, through purposes, through maqasid al-sharia, is congruent And Dr. Ali Reza was talking about fatwa, law, and the biomedical practice and ethics, actually. Here you need such a framework that will guide. I should not think as a medical practitioner in terms of the autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice. And our Islamic scholars, they will think in terms of maqasid sharia. We should align all the principles in one framework, inshallah. So it's recommended that further refining and crystallization of the concept of maqasid and qawaid al-fiqhiyya should be used explicitly in fatwa and ethical medical decision making and taught to medical nursing and paramedical students and graduates, and should be used to guide both public as well as professional discussions of bioethical issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nasser, for this provoking lecture. And I would like to introduce the final presenter, Dr. Abdus Shakur. He is the Associate Professor, Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation. He is the member of the Institution Review Board at the Medical University, Dhaka, Bangladesh. He will talk about the ethical issues in biomedical research, a developing country perspective. Dr. Abdul Shakur, you have 15 minutes to present your presentation. The floor is yours.
But where is my one? Is it not here? I can take. Okay. This is. Why it is not here? I have given it. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. All the speakers have told about the principles of ethics, but I like to invite you in my presentation the practical problem and practical things in our country in a developing one. This is my university. Our abstract is research ethics is the discipline of evaluation of merits, demerits, and risks, benefit, and social concern over research activities. In a developing country, there are many vulnerable subjects like people of slum area, persons of low socioeconomic conditions, female, low-income groups, etc., and protection should be given to them. Ultimately, a voluntary informed consent autonomy should be given and confidentiality should be maintained. Our study was on 214 doctors who have done a research previously. We have given some questionnaire like that, what is Nuremberg Code guideline, ethical guidelines, ethical declaration, etc. And we found some result. Actually, they are aware of ethical concern, but there is some poor knowledge also, and there is some problem in taking informed consent. Conclusion of my subject, that is summary, the knowledge of most of the researcher of the concerned institute was poor about guidelines of research ethics, but they are aware of informed consent. But to some extent, they are not using it practically. I should not go for introduction. There are some guidelines I have already told, I have seen by our previous research also. But I have to highlight some on here, that is Islamic Medical Association of North America. They have some documents on that. We can take it to take it for our concern also. We know WMA, we know CM's guideline, and Council of Europe, there is another guideline also. Our observation in a developing country, we have some objective, especially it's a CAP study, knowledge, attitude, and practice. It is done in a university setting like Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib Medical University, and data collection was done by some specific persons related to this, especially the professor of the university, and I am the principal investigator, and the fund was given by Bangladesh Medical Research Council. Statistical methods, I should not go for that, I think you know better. Result. 240 participants, we see here, maximum, that is 76.2% respondent agreed that the primary purpose of biomedical research is to improve diagnostic and therapeutic procedure. And they agreed they have no idea about Nuremberg Code, but it is very much important. And only a few responded, that is 8.4% stated that informed consent is not essential, but 39.7% have the correct answer. Many participants gave positive answer about Helsinki Declaration, and maximum participant, 53.6% know nothing about the statement the Nuremberg Code states that the voluntary consent of human subject is absolutely essential. This is very much disgusting. This is the tabular form, what I said before, and here I can highlight you that Nuremberg Code, about Nuremberg Code, some says they don't know about it, and some say false. That is correct, sir. And about Helsinki Declaration, we can see here that many of them don't know about declaration contains the ethical principle. But many of the respondents said it is true. This is the true answer. Knowledge about informed consent. Most of the respondents, 82.7% agreed that informed consent should be written, and 17.3% gave negative answer. And 98.1% responded as the child's consent is not valid for a research work. Maximum respondent, that is 80.4%, agreed that confidentiality should be included in informed consent, and 15 disagreed. This is good. And maximum responded, 69.6% stated that informed consent should not include duration of a study, but it should be. 33.2% participants stated that informed consent should not be given without undue inducement. I think there is some problem for realization or knowledge of this to our respondent. Maximum respondent, 55.1% agreed that informed consent is mandatory in case of prospective study, and 31.8% disagreed. This is the tabular form. I should not go for all those due to time constraint. Attitude. Maximum participant, 98.6%, stated that consent should be taken before starting a study. This should be, but 65.9% participants stated that witness is not necessary during taking informed consent. Rest agreed. So the 77.1% agreed to take written document during informed consent process. 22% disagreed, and rest of the respondent gave no answer. Maximum, that is 90.7%, had the idea that aims and procedures should be explained during taking informed consent, and some disagreed. This is the tabular form. I should not go for all the things. Practice. In practice, maximum took informed consent from the subject during their study, and 31.1% had not taken any informed consent. Only 47.6% participants took written consent, and some take verbal consent. Maximum had the idea about their friends that student had taken informed consent before starting their study. I think this is good, but to some extent there is some person, for some researcher, had not taken any consent. Discussion in a developing country like Bangladesh, it was thought most of the doctors of this country are lacking in knowledge about this subject, but their study results will be disappointing. But in the present study, it was found that researchers who were involved in biomedical research were more or less careful and maintained ethical issues, but many of them had poor knowledge about ethical issues. In practice, some researchers did not take any informed consent. It is wise to take informed consent, and it should be in written form, because a record is necessary to protect the researcher. Otherwise, the investigator may become guilty with some troublesome situation when any controversy arises. Conclusion: from the present study, it can be concluded that most of the researchers of the concerned institute are poor about guidelines of research ethics, but they are knowledgeable about informed consent, but some had poor attitude to apply it in practice. Awareness should be grown up amongst them to protect human rights during clinical research. Message from the study: as there is evidence of negligence to practice and some had poor knowledge about bioethics, so the developed countries may come forward to improve this situation of ethical issues in developing country to protect human rights. Acknowledgement. We would like to thank Bangladesh Medical Research Council for their financial support. We would like to thank the respondent who had participated in the study. Now, the present situation about ethics in Bangladesh as a developing country. There are many committees, many associations. That is, Bangladesh Medical Research Council was concerned with ethical approval for many years, but there was no mandatory option of taking ERB or IRB approval of study involving human being. Bangladesh Bioethics Society have ethical review board, deals with all aspects of bioethics, not only the biomedical research. And I was involved in that committee also. And BSMMU, Bangladesh Medical Research, Bangladesh, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib Medical University. I am one of the faculty of this university. We have a strong IRB. I was the member secretary of that IRB. Now I am the member of that IRB. Now, every student needs IRB approval since 2010. And we have another institute in which we have given FCPS degree, that is fellowship degree, that is BCPS, Bangladesh College of Physicians and Surgeons. It has also ERC, Ethics Review Committee, for review the protocol of all the fellows and students. Fellows who have passed and having FCPS degree, that is fellowship is a very big degree in our country. If they want to take some research work, they can take ethical approval from that institute. And all the students should have to take ethical clearance. It is mandatory since July 2010. And this is very much interesting, and it is, I think, it's a very good endeavor from our country. But what about medical college? There is some problem in our medical colleges. All the medical colleges deals with undergraduate medical student. Maximum have ethics review committee. Many of them are active, but some of them are inactive. There may be some medical colleges in our country, actually, especially in the remote area, in the district level, there are some medical colleges. They have no ethics review committee at all. And there are some private institutions. Actually, they are lacking of this committee also. Islamic issues, in all the committees, there was an Islamic scholar in the committee. In our Medical University on Professor of Islamic Studies of Dhaka University or in any another ethical committee, this includes Director of Islamic Foundation or the representative of Islamic Foundation. He can review all the things with Islamic issues and evidence. On protocol was submitted by a female student. It was on adult male genital organ, but IRB, BSMU have not given the approval for Islamic issue to do it because there are many male students who can do such study. These are some works of our ethics committee you see here. And finally, thank you very much for patient hearing. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdul Shakur. Now we have came to the end of lectures. Dr. Ali Reza have presented the top 10 bioethical issues from the perspective of the respondent. On his top of the top 10 was the relation between law, ethics, and fatwa. Research ethics was not on the top 10 of his list. Dr. Ghali stressed the necessity of correct, right perception of biomedical issues when discussed, and he also drew the attention to the need to engage doctors and scientists in scholars' discussion. Dr. Al-Azri was so brave to criticize the 4 principles of modern bioethics, and his presentation will be a source of, I think, good discussion in this conference. Dr. Abdul Shakur talked about research ethics in Bangladesh. Good news that all physician has to get the approval of the IRBs, but the knowledge needs to be improved. Rich session, rich presentation, and now the floor is yours as the audience to draw your questions and comments, please. Starting with Professor Jamal Al-Jarallah.
Thank you very much. Jamal Al-Jarallah from the King Saud University, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. It was really a very rich session. Thank you all the speakers for their presentations. In fact, one can ask questions or comments to all of them, but I will restrict myself to 1 or 2 for the time's sake. Dr. Ali Reza, my question is actually regarding what technique did you use when you sent the questionnaire to the participant in your study? Was it only sent once and then you get the result and you, according to that, or you use other techniques like, for example, Delphi technique where you send it twice and more, and till you come to a conclusion, really a solid conclusion that this is the priority that they listed. My comment to Dr. Al-Azri, I think today you are not only a medical practitioner, you are a philosopher and maybe more than that. I will commend you for your critical thinking about these principles. I would argue that the principles are strong and universally accepted as principles. I would argue that they are accepted universally as principles. The problems may be in the details. I wouldn't say the evil, but the problems